is that if you look after it, it will look after you.
G'day and welcome to the Farms Advice podcast with your host, Jack Creswell. Whether you farm it, service it, or just love it, this podcast is for you. We'll bring you the techniques and technologies you can implement into your day straight from the leaders and innovators themselves. Spread the Farms Advice so that we can reach more farmers right across Australia. Follow us on all of your socials at Farms Advice, and let's get into this episode. Back in 1923, good horses were the main source of horsepower across farms. But a year that marked remarkable change in farm power with the introduction of the iconic Farmall, an all-purpose tractor which would help revolutionise the agriculture industry as we knew it at the time, as they knew it. But in 2023, Case IH is kicking off a year-long celebration to honour a 100-year anniversary of the Farmall tractor, and you can be a part of it. Up in Inverell, you'll be able to become a part of a World Guinness record attempt. Go to Case IH website to find out more information, but we'll talk to the product manager, Seamus McCarthy, about the mid-range and small Farmall tractors, how they work for Australian farmers. Let's get into it. G'day and welcome to the Farms Advice podcast. We're continuing on within the Case IH series, and it's actually unreal to have it in 2023 on the podcast as well because, well, it's a special year for Case IH and a piece of machinery, pieces of machinery as well. So we've got Seamus on the phone today in the studio, virtual studio. Seamus, great to have you on the podcast, mate.
Thank you, Jack, and it's a pleasure to be here. So, yeah, as you mentioned earlier, it is a very exciting time for Case IH this year with the Farmall 100-year anniversary. So, exciting days ahead, and yeah, it should be a cracker.
It's no small feat, definitely, to bring a piece of machinery right way through within that 100 years, and maybe those changes and everything that's gone on to in the developments and everything, and how that's changed the landscape of farming as we see it in Australia, but also on that global sort of playing field in the paddocks of farmers in Canada to America to England, to see how it's sort of rolling out. I think it's pretty cool, and how we can sort of use these machines to improve the way that we work throughout our life as well in the different stages of our careers. So, Seamus, welcome. Before we get into a bit of Farmall, what's your background and connection to agriculture, and how did that lead you to your role?
Yeah, Jack, I've been in the industry since my 27th year. So I'm fortunate that my entire working career has been with CNH Industrial. So the first 20 odd years, I was in finance. So I'm actually a qualified CPA accountant.
Yep.
So then after about, 6 years ago, I transitioned into my current product manager role. Just wanted the change and love the industry, love the company, love the people. So just look for a different dynamic. And yeah, I found myself into marketing, which probably suits my personality a lot, as I like to engage with people.
Yep.
And on a personal note, the finance people didn't laugh as at my jokes as much as the marketing people do. So that's personally rewarding. But yeah, so as I said, I love the industry and the people you encounter. And I'm also honoured to work with a leading ag brand like Case IH. So the ability to assist farmers and have a positive impact on their livelihood and their success is a responsibility I take seriously. This drives me every day to continuously seek improvements in machine performance and hopefully to increase our technology footprint. So just on a personal note, I have a connection to agriculture. My family's of Irish heritage, if you don't already know, as the name of Seamus McCarthy.
Yep.
So that connection of agriculture goes deep through our family, because as Irish people, we do love potatoes.
Diddly-dee potatoes. That's all.
To be sure.
That's him. Do you still have your roots over in Ireland? Have you gotten over there before?
Yes. I'm fortunate to be back there. So I was actually born in Australia. So
Yep.
My parents emigrated out here, would have been 55 years ago. So very fortunate that they did that, because the lifestyle we enjoy in Australia is second to none. So I have been fortunate enough to go back to the family clan in Belfast and experience the beauty of Ireland firsthand. I was probably about, over 15 years ago. But hopefully I'll get back again soon. So I've got cousins and aunties and so forth over there still. So so they're keeping the stoking the fires for our return. And yeah, we'll have a Guinness one day soon.
Absolutely, yeah. The best of both worlds. I say my mum's British, so we nearly went there every year throughout school and everything. But until we have to start paying for our own flights, it wasn't the go. But anyway, thanks for coming on to the Case IH series. Enough about us and a little bit more about Farmall, your role as product manager for your mid horsepower and compact tractors. What is this involving? And tell us a little bit about the machinery that fall into this category.
Okay, so yeah, as I said, I was fortunate to work with Case IH, and the product that I manage in that mid horsepower and compact areas is so if you go through the Case IH tractor range,
Yep.
I work from Maxim down to Farmall, and Farmall being the compact area, so that covers around about 150 horsepower down. So there's a wide range of product in that area, but but the reason I love my job so much is because of the diversity of tasks and the opportunities that are presented to me. And the main role I see for product managers when I was trying to think about out of the 1,000 things I do a day, but what are the main essential parts to this role? And essentially it comes back to like the 4 Ps of marketing principles. So that is, without being too cliche, like the product, price, promotion, and placement.
Yep.
And when I delve into that a bit further, like product is by far the most important element of this role. So it requires me to ensure that the product we offer from Case IH into the Australian market continues to meet the customer needs. This is especially important given the customer needs are continuously evolving.
Yeah.
What a farmer needed yesterday is not the same as what they'll need tomorrow. And Case IH has built its 180 years of success on our ability to not only understand today's farming needs, but also tomorrow's. And Case IH is leading the technology advancement of agriculture, and it's extremely exciting time to be involved in this industry. For price, as I said before, we're fortunate to have my background in finance, so this allows me to understand the nuances of correct price positioning. There's a fine line between a corporate margin and the volume and price competitive, and so this is forever present. However, I'm lucky in this regard, as it always helps in marketing when you're selling a premium product such as Case IH tractors. Takes me on to promotion. This is a very dynamic element, and we have very well-skilled marketing team at Case IH, which also looks at the different platforms to promote our product and our initiatives we want to go forth within the market at certain times. So we look at different elements of marketing and promotion, and the growth in the social promotion is constantly increasing. So this is a great way for us to be connected with our customers in the greater market. Social's best attribute is the speed at which we can communicate to the audience our messages of information. However, we also still utilise traditional promotional methods as part of our holistic marketing approach. And then finally, we have placement. The placement of our product is secured for our professional Case IH network. So that part is pretty much taken care of for me. Another key part of my role, which I find personally rewarding, is the ability to visit field day events and speak to customers directly. This helps me understand the variety of applications and industries in which they operate their Case IH tractors, to hear their challenges and work with our global product platforms to resolve these matters. So all this keeps me busy, Jack, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I really love my job, and I'm very fortunate to be in the position I am.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got your staple to rely back on, even as time changes, technology improves and increases. You got your 4 Ps to get back into there. But an interesting transition from accounting and then coming away to product managing within the Case IH team there. But over time, like farming practices, they're forever changing from this year to next year. There'll be different people trialing different things to see how we can improve. But how has this sort of changed the development of what was the sort of original Farmalls and what the farmers were needing to what the markets were needing and wanting? What was that?
Yeah, so again, it's funny because we're fortunate, as we mentioned earlier, the Case IH is the 100-year celebration of Farmall this year, and I've been beneficial to be able to see some of the earlier Farmall models, like we're talking 1930 models, and then again, this is only started in 1923. So to see kind of like working 1930 machines around in that Farmall model is fascinating, and just to see how basic they were. But I can understand from how the or that Farmall tractor progressed from the previous version of farming equipment, which was the old horse. Like it was very advanced in its day. But to see our Farmall tractors today is kind of like leaps and bounds advanced from where they initially were. And Case IH, as I mentioned earlier, is leading the way in technology development for agricultural machinery. So we see this in the high horsepower Case IH tractors, and this is working its way down to the mid sizes and also the utility tractor segments. So farmers are demanding more effective machinery to create profitability in their farming operations.
Yep.
Case IH understands this demand, and we seek to offer features in our tractors that make customers' operations both successful and comfortable. We're currently developing auto guidance technologies for some Farmall machines. So this will create operating efficiencies. And then later this year, we're excited to announce we're going to offer telematics in our Farmall JXM range. So telematics in this utility tractor will allow data such as machine operations, including fuel speed, usage, location, as well as like other elements of geofencing and curfew capabilities. So these can all be interfaced into the Case IH portal, and then that can be utilised to better have information to change the farming practices and improve efficiencies. So farming practices also, like community sentiment, has developed in recent times to ensure the welfare of workers and farmers and oneself is recognised. Case IH recognises this dynamic and strives to provide comfortable machines with features like cab suspension, air conditioning, suspension seats as standard, and this is throughout some of the Farmall range. So we're not only looking after the farmer and their profitability, but also their mental health and making sure that they get back safely to their family each night.
Yeah, absolutely. And dialing down on efficiencies, I think everyone's always looking to improve those 1%ers that we do. Would you say, Seamus, for your product that you manage across the 150 horsepower and down, from the Magnums down, would this be the most busy segment for Case IH? Because you've got the sort of mixed enterprise farmers, the ones nearing on the bigger boys for broad acre, and also those smaller, let's call them hobby farmers or whatnot, getting around those pieces of machinery. Do you say that's the busiest?
I'd definitely say. So when we look at our the industry in Australia, like it would be at least 60-70% of the tractors sold will be in this segment. I mean, so although Case IH is very successful in the high horsepower, the market opportunities arise in this below 150 horsepower segment. So we have to make sure that we are providing the machine needs to these numerous customers that are out there in the market, because they're so diverse in their needs. We look at the different industries that farming operates in this small horsepower. You mentioned a few of them, whether it be lifestyle, but there's also specialty, horticulture, lawn care, livestock. As I said, that's a broad range of farming needs. And so to have our tractor machinery that can satisfy those farming needs across many industries and applications is why Case IH continues to be so successful.
Yeah, definitely. And looking back over the Farmall timeline, what would you say would be the most pivotal moment for the tractor? Would it be like getting enclosed cab? Is that sort of like the biggest sort of pivoting moment, or is it a bit sooner than that?
No, that was one of the big ones, but I think a cab is kind of like, really just allowed farmers to operate the machinery more comfortably, probably for longer periods as well, with the comfort that goes with a cab machine. But I think one of the biggest advancements that we're kind of like seeing now has probably got to do with technology. You know what I mean? So the technology that's evolving in these machines, as I said, from even just the comfort of having electric remotes versus mechanical remotes, and auto guidance coming onto our machines to allow kind of like the operational efficiencies that I mentioned. Also, telematics is going to come down, and I'm sure there'll be a time when, in my lifetime, we'll hopefully see even autonomous tractors in this mid-sized tractor range.
Yeah, definitely. And like looking up online, there's actually like Farmall tractor groups within Facebook and other clubs. There's a Farmall cub.com. Like these are globally as well, but like there's some enthusiasts out there that are proper passionate about their Farmall tractors and the history that comes along with it. Have you seen much of that sort of come through on your side of the desk as well, being the sort of the dealership, the manufacturer?
Yeah, definitely. And we've probably only seen even more prevalence this year when we kind of like really been seeking out these associations for involvement in our 100-year celebration of Farmall. So, and I said some of these, they're fanatical, some of these kind of like collectors or operators or just enthusiasts in general, and the care that they take with their Farmall tractor, like it's probably, I think they probably put more pride in their tractor than they're probably their family. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's very rewarding because we understand the history of farming, and I've spoken to a few about where does their love for Farmall come, and it's because they grew up driving these Farmall tractors, whether it was this model or an earlier model in their farming history. So, as I said, so that resonated with them from a young age, and as I said, the Farmall is such an iconic tractor that I think that it does allow the love affair to continue.
There's definitely nothing wrong with a bit of nostalgia punching through there. But this time of year, you know what time it is being Case IH team behind the desk. You're dealing with more inquiries coming up to sowing season, looking for different capacities of tractors. What are producers and growers keeping in mind when it comes to machine prep and maintenance of the Farmall line from that 150 horsepower down? What's the best way?
Yeah, and I'll probably not be a bit cliche to you, Jackie, that machinery is machinery. And I understand the universal concept of machinery is that if you look after it, it will look after you. And the same logic applies to agricultural machinery, probably even more so, because it's so important to our farmers' kind of like success. So if you maintain your machine and operate it within its capacity constraints, then it will perform at its peak performance season after season.
Yeah,
So I would recommend that farmers ensure they book their tractors for regular scheduled maintenance, and this just gives them peace of mind, and it will reduces the risk of downtime, which is something we're always looking to avoid.
absolutely. And probably going out to buy two grease guns. So one, the one that you forget or leave in the paddock, and then you've got the spare back home ready to go. And even going into the lines of battery powered grease guns, I think they're a bit of a game changer coming up to prep and maintenance. Like we're just getting ready ourselves for planning time and having a run through and making sure our machinery's operating. Much better to do the prep and maintenance beforehand, isn't it? We were speaking about this on the Case IH series coming up to harvest time. That's quite heavy on with labour and machinery wise, but planning's just the same, and I think it gets left out of the highlights, I suppose, rather than what harvest is, getting that crop off.
Yeah, I agree because, as I said, a machine that's kind of like broken or not operating is of no use to anyone, and so then it's really important to make sure that we have the machine operating as effectively as it can, um, and and it's also important, Jack, to make sure that my belief is that we should be using genuine parts and skilled labour to perform these maintenance tasks. Although you might take a shortcut today, it's really going to come back to bite you in the bum tomorrow. So, as I said, try to do the best we can today to make sure that we have that longevity and efficiency of our machines is what every farmer should be striving for.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a few farmers, just like ourselves, have learnt the hard way of non-genuine parts out there as well, just to get the job done, and maybe even ensuring that we can stay in the paddock and get that job done at the end of the day. But for the challenges that farmers are finding and facing each and every day, what have they not discovered or considered even the impact of a tractor could help them with, a compact tractor?
Yep, and good question. So, I mentioned before, like the challenges today's farmers are facing is nothing new,
Yep.
and the general question is how do I get more from less? So the conundrum this keeps many farmers awake at night. The Case IH, we're glad that we're in the problem-solving business. So our goal is to bring to market first-class tractors with leading-edge technology. Most professional and serious farmers are most likely aware of Case IH's flagship tractors, such as the market-leading Steiger, but they may not be aware that this technology, such as GPS auto guided steering and telematics, as mentioned earlier, are now becoming available on a mid-size of utility tractors. So, as I said, so that's exciting that the smaller frame tractors are getting this technology to make sure that they're operating as efficiently as the bigger brothers in the higher horsepower segments. So for the compact segment, again, this is probably the biggest TIV in Australia. So we're talking before about under 150 horsepower, but if we look at the 0 to 60, this is 40% of the TIV in Australia. So for such a small segment, small horsepower, it's one of the biggest segments. So this goes to show the scope of tasks that the compact tractors can perform and the importance to farmers these compact tractors hold. So we see that there's a combination of usages for compact tractors. So some, it's the main tractor on a hobby farm and their pride and joy. But also we see that it's being used as an all-rounder in a bigger operation. So the Case IH Farmall B range, which is our compact offering, has all of these elements covered. So in cab and ROPS, and I mean, it comes in a choice of multiple hydrostatic or mechanical transmissions. So with a suite of implements available to cover all these jobs, you can't go wrong with a Farmall B.
Absolutely. Has there been a discussion at Case IH about, like, we're sort of moving into, there's been that discussion, or the topic even, of having a few more, maybe even a few more tractors out in the paddock, but looking to, like, decrease the size and the impact of what the larger tractors are having on the ground, and controlling that sort of factor. Is that something that's been spoken about?
Yeah, and we are cognizant of that fact, Jack. And the reason that this is becoming a lot more prevalent is because of these mid-sized tractors are capable of performing nearly the equivalent tasks that the bigger horsepower tractors perform. Maybe not the scale and the capacities, but as I said, the technology that's involved is catching up. So once we can perform the similar task, and as I said, if you can, rather than having a couple of very big tractors, if you can have a multitude of smaller tractors with the same efficiencies operating around, well, then that's something better, as I said, for soil compaction and the environment, I believe.
Absolutely. And being 2023 and the 100th year of the Farmall, can you tell us a little bit about the history that you love about the machines?
Yeah, Jack, and as I said, this is probably one of the most, proudest things I'll do in my lifetime is being able to celebrate this significant milestone for Case IH. So just a bit of a history. The Farmall tractor is an iconic symbol of farming, which fueled the growth of production of worldwide agriculture in the early 20th century. The engineering and design advances of the famous Big Red Tractor are evident in the agricultural machines of today. The vast numbers of operating Farmalls still working the fields and orchards, decades after rolling off their assembly lines, is a testament to their dependability and customer loyalty. We have well over 5 million Farmall tractors produced and sold around the world. And the Farmall is perhaps the single most popular tractor line in agricultural equipment history. The Farmall legacy is attributed to a gentleman named Bert Benjamin. He was an engineer with International Harvester and identified the need for a smaller tractor capable of performing many farming tasks. He designed a new model, and the Farmall name was registered in July 1923. Unlike the competition at the time, the Farmall tractors were lightweight and nimble, with a high power to weight ratio. The Farmall worked in all situations, with a series of matching implements for ploughing, cultivation, harvesting, as well as coming with a reasonable price tag. Farmall was a tractor that allowed a tremendous number of farmers to swap over their horse teams for mechanical power, helping to enable agriculture's production revolution. Farmall wasn't the first tractor, not even the first tractor from International Harvester, but it was the first tractor that was practical for all farmers. The early Farmall tractors were manufactured in a newly designed plant in Rockford, Illinois, and were grey in colour. So in 1936, International Harvester made the decision to change to the iconic red paint. So this distinguished from the grey colour of Ford previously, its main competitor, and also to make the machines more recognisable in the field. It would also be remiss of me not to mention the Australian connection with the Farmall tractors, as from 1939 to 1973, Farmall tractors were produced in the Geelong factory in Victoria. They were primary row crop models with narrow front wheels and were initially made using substantial quantities of imported parts. And in 1948, the first fully Australian-made tractor was produced. But over the years, there's been many model variations of the Farmall range, just as we have today. This is a strategic approach to ensure full coverage of the many varying specifications and applications to meet farmers' machinery requirements. In the 1970s, the Farmall name was dropped from production as the new model names were implemented. However, in 2004, Case IH announced the resurrection of a legend. The Farmall name was reintroduced. Representing just under 50% of all Case IH sales in Australia, the Farmall range is just as significant to our farmers and dealers today as it was 100 years ago. Farmall tractors represent an unwavering commitment to agriculture. Perhaps that is one of the reasons farmers identify so strongly with their Case IH tractors. As beside themselves, there's nothing on the farm that works harder than a Farmall.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about the time when they were producing. It's probably trying to improve production as well after World War One. I'm not the best historian, but I believe it was pretty close after World War One finished up for it and around the world. And then the first Aussie tractor in 1948, pretty impressive sort of turnaround, and how that would have opened up Australia's agriculture coming in after, of course, the States in our development of agriculture as well.
Yeah, and also manufacturing in Australia too. So it's unfortunate we don't have the footprint that we once did. But again, like that operation there in Geelong was very significant to the employment of the workforce, and it gave many people the opportunity to, as I said, enjoy the success of Case IH and International Harvester at the time. So as I said, they're very proud of that legacy.
Absolutely, and so you should be. But for 2023 and Case IH, what can we expect in terms of celebrating this huge milestone of what the Farmall has achieved over this time frame, and how can people get involved?
Yep. So the timing of this podcast is very special, Jack, because just it's Easter show time in Sydney, in New South Wales. So, and we've just commenced one of the celebration events throughout Australia this year with the Farmall tractor display at the Easter show. So this will showcase both vintage and modern tractors, so which allows the public to see not only the historical vintage Farmall tractors that are very unique and attracting to the customers, or sorry, the public that comes through the display, but just appreciate how far these machines have developed over the years with some current models. Our primary celebration for the 100-year celebration will be held in late July in Inverell, New South Wales. There we plan to showcase over 100 Farmall tractors, so with a heavy focus on the vintage units. So this will be a once in a lifetime event, with plans to hold a street parade down Inverell's main street before moving on to a showground for a wonderful community day with plenty of fun activities planned for the whole family. We're striving for a world record attempt with the most number of Farmalls to take place in the street parade. We are currently organising the final details, but collectors of vintage machinery clubs that are interested should keep an eye out for details on the Case IH website, or they can send an email to info.australia@caseih.com, and we'll make sure we get in contact with them to participate. This is really your chance to see history in the making and an event not to be missed. So we'll also be looking to facilitate vintage Farmall tractors displays at various field day events throughout the year. And I just hope everyone gets a chance to enjoy the legacy and future of this classical tractor range.
Beautiful. There's plenty to see and do for the machines of yesterday, today, and tomorrow to see what's coming on. That's massive. The record attempt to see how many Farmalls you can get in the one spot.
Yeah, as I said, it's taking a lot of logistical organisation, but it's something that we're really excited about. As I said, to be a world record holder, I think that's going to be kudos to Farmall as well as Case IH.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you do a good job at it with your supply chain, the way it is, and how you get your equipment out to the dealers, but also for the farmers as well. But we've looked to the past of what Farmall is and their history, the timeline. But what's the future of mid horsepower and compact tractors look like?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, as I said, the change is kind of like developing at an alarming rate, and we're just so excited to be involved in that. So Case IH, as I mentioned earlier, sees the future of mid-sized tractor and compact evolving at a rapid rate, and we have the technology on the high horsepower tractors. So it's a matter of time before we see this transition down into the lower horsepower models. We expect to see even further operational and performance efficiencies as Case IH is constantly looking ahead, and work is being done with our partner Monarch on electrification of tractors. So again, this is a new concept that we're breaking ground with to ensure that not only the traditional diesel operation, but also the world of electric batteries is now entering into the foray of tractors. And I expect to see that these will be popular given the social awareness regarding your environment and also greater consideration of the total cost of ownership. And so, as I said before, I'd be very surprised if in my time frame I don't see an autonomous mid-sized tractor. I've seen kind of like prototypes in the high horsepower, and I know Case IH is doing a wonderful job in that arena. But I think it'll be something really wonderful to see a mid-sized tractor working autonomously in the field.
Yeah, I think it's a bit inevitable for that to come along, whether that's a bit of a different sort of business model as well and how that works for farmers. I'm sure, yeah, it's coming quite soon as well. But for yourself, what's the greatest opportunities for farmers as a result of these future developments taking place?
Yep. So the opportunities for the future are becoming visible. So we see now auto guidance becoming a
Yep.
standard feature and autonomous tractor around the corner. So the challenges farmers will face will shift from cost reduction, efficient machinery, and supply of labour. So that the current challenges will change to more fleet management and other farming concerns regarding weather and yield. So to take that pressure away from some of the elements that cause
Yep.
angst of the farmers, we'll be able to solve that with, as I said, efficient autonomous technology to give them time to focus on other elements of farming. So the machinery challenges will be reduced, and this will allow farmers to focus on their efforts of the remaining 999 tasks they need to perform each day.
Yeah, definitely. I think making that all seamless, so we don't have to pick up the pieces of all the different elements and they can sort of just all talk to each other. But
Exactly.
Seamus, within the last 40 minutes or so, we've gotten a little bit of a download of the time frame of the Farmalls and the huge milestone of what it actually is to get it to 100 years and to actually celebrate it. And I think you've got a cracking year coming ahead, and especially up in July around Inverell. I'll be keen to get up there as well. But for this episode, what would be your one piece of farm advice you'd like those to take away from the Farmall history, but also
Uh,
the future?
Yep. So I'll hold you to that, Jack. So I will hold a tractor seat for you, mate, because
Ready?
as I said, we need drivers for this event. So hopefully you can participate and be part of the world record attempt. So yeah, when I was thinking about this, what the takeaway would be. So I understand that, as I said, the exceptional kind of like event that's planned for the 100 years. I think the greater kind of like, because I mean, we have to look at a more wider scale. So the agricultural landscape is changing at a rapid rate, and so Case IH will continue to lead and support farmers with the machinery required to perform the tasks of tomorrow. But today they'll be able to do that. So the growing range of machines that offer technological features such as standard, we just want to reassure that Case IH machines will help you get the most from your land and your operation. So my advice is to lean in and embrace this change, and you'll see how pleasantly you're surprised you'll be at how technology and the information and data that can be sourced from your machine can influence positive change in your farming success. So some people are fearful of change and just want to do the way they've done it yesterday, but I think we've got to get on the train because technology is around us everywhere, and it's only going to make our life and farming practices easier and more profitable. So that's my advice for farmers today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on the Farms Wise podcast and also on the Case IH series. Seamus, great to have you and your expertise on board as a product manager, because it's not every day that you get to hear about the ins and outs of what happens as a product manager within a huge manufacturer for Australian farmers and what it's doing for farming in Australia as well. So thanks for coming on board.
No, it was my pleasure, Jack, and thank you for the time again and the opportunity to discuss. I mean, as I said, I'm very passionate about Case IH and farming, Farmall product as well. And again, I just hope that we can help our farmers during their daily tasks, as I said, to make their life easier as well. So
That's
thank
what
you.
it's all about. So I'll get a few of those links and I'll drop them in the show notes so that you can find out a little bit about the milestones happening here on the Case IH series, but also what they're doing with Farmall this year. Thanks, Seamus.
No worries. Cheers, Jack. Take care.
This Farms Advice episode does not stop here. Come and join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, and even join our Facebook group. Go to farmsadvice.com.au for more on this episode and spread the hashtag FarmsAdvice to your mates. If you can leave a review on Apple or Spotify, that will let other farmers find us too. But until then, see you next Tuesday.